fall in Florida.
Welcome to Florida, man. You know,
well,
a little steamy these days.
It's real steamy. So, hey all, this is Paul from Drums and Rums, where the backbeats meet the spirits. I'm here today, joined by good friend Jamey Bennett, Royal Ruckus, or
That's right. That's right. That's why I get the chair, because
got
it's
the
Royal
throne.
Ruckus. It's
The
a
throne.
It's the recliner throne. I mean, what kings? Did any kings actually have recliners in the Middle Ages? I bet they didn't.
No, I don't think so. But they did have that one with all the swords, right?
I've seen pictures of that. I haven't seen the thing though.
Dude.
Yeah.
So we're already getting off track here. And I know I didn't send, Jamey probably got nervous that I was going to send or send questions and prepare them on all that. And I said, you know what? We're going to go ahead and give this a shot here. And we're just going to just freestyle, just like my man does here.
Let's do it.
And we're just going to go into it. We'll try to answer some questions on our on the social media. So hopefully everybody can hear us. And I said, if you're trying to text me to let me know the sound is not working, don't bother because my phone is right there. So don't bother to text me because I can't hear you and I'm not getting up and stopping that anyway. So yeah.
I've texted you on a podcast before.
Yes.
And you didn't get it. You never replied.
No, you're like,
but
hey,
now I understand why.
Hey, how come? Yeah, I'm trying to run a podcast, dude. You're trying to do it all, right?
It's like something's actually happening, you know?
It's I need to hire people. So if anybody wants the minimum wage, no
there you
wage,
go.
no
That's
wage.
right.
You want to be part of a podcast?
It's an internship.
There you go.
There you go.
That's what I got to do.
That's
Is
how you do it.
internship. So here I'm joined by also AKA Chunjay.
Chunjay.
A lot of people know that. You know you by that or no?
Yeah. I think I go by Jamey more than Chunjay, though.
Okay.
But I go by a lot of names, you know? I mean, and actually Chunjay wasn't even the original rap name. The original rap name in Royal Ruckus was Clever MC.
Clever MC.
And Chunjay, I'm told, I still haven't verified it after all these years, but I'm told Chunjay essentially means clever man in Korean. I was given that in high school when I was going around calling myself Clever MC.
All right. So did you actually look that up, or are you just going by what someone
I still
told you?
haven't looked it up, but I trust her.
Oh, okay.
I still follow her on Instagram.
So if we've got any Korean, people that speak Korean, please chime in the comments that and don't. Well, no, maybe not, because they don't want to burst Jamey's bubble and find out it's something else.
Yeah, after what 21 years of Royal Ruckus, like my bubble could be burst. It really means like jerkhead or something, you know. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? So super stoked to get a chance to sit down with you. I know we've been talking on and off, and we've had a lot of things going on, or cross paths many times. Some music endeavors here and there over the years.
And that's the secret, right? Like, so you have drummed with me. You've actually performed with me.
Right.
And for all intents and purposes, from the crowd's perspective, there were very few people there that had ever heard me before, as far as I know, at the various venues we played. So there are people out there that think you're part of Royal Ruckus.
Oh, well, hey.
So we're in a band together. We just didn't know it.
That's right, man.
Rock on.
I still haven't got a royalty check yet.
I'm still waiting for mine too.
Okay.
They come by PayPal now, though.
Oh, okay. This no longer snail mail. So you may ask, like, all right, well, what is Royal Ruckus and what is Jamey all about? And obviously we've performed together and so forth. So Jamey, those that don't know your background or Royal Ruckus, give them the quick overview, and then we'll see where we go from there.
Sure. Well, I also want to say, like, thanks for having me. Like, ever since I heard you started the Drums and Rums podcast, I was pretty intrigued and excited about the possibility of being on it. And then apparently I bugged you just enough that you even eventually asked me. So here we are. And so thank you for having me on.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Royal Ruckus, gosh, where do you start? Like, because I actually want to back up a little bit and just plant a seed and say that I grew up playing drums, which makes me a good candidate for this show. Although I think I probably could have gotten away with just being a rapper, But yeah, I grew up playing drums and then became a rapper at some point. And then when I started making tapes and like wanting to produce beats and things like that, I invented the name Royal Ruckus. Royal Ruckus Productions was what it was called originally. And then
At what age?
15 or 16.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was like my fantasy production company, right?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
like I had probably a binder paper full of like 50 names, and that was my favorite, you know. And then when I was a senior in high school, we started Royal Ruckus. And it was a 3-man outfit at first. We were a sophomore, junior, and senior in high school. And we accidentally took the high school by storm because it was a joke. Like, we were not intending to do anything serious. We were just 3 kids clowning around. And our first record was terrible. Most people, thankfully, have not heard that record. But, you know, I'm proud of us for making it. And, like, we did it in our spare time our senior year in high school. And, like, the last 2 weeks of school, we were slinging CDs left and right. We were selling for $7 a pop. We sold them to everybody who was willing to part with $7. And my great-grandmother's sister even bought one. I tried to give it to her. She didn't have a CD player. Like, this was so OG, you know. And anyway, we had a good time, but then we started, like, realizing that we had something that was kind of special, and we ran with it. And at some point we moved to Nashville. We were on a label. Not a whole lot came of that except great experiences and some really cool touring opportunities, and you know, meeting a lot of incredible artists, that kind of thing. Over the years since then, it was like we went from I left this part out. We were from California. Bakersfield, California is the hometown, and we're proud to represent Bakersfield. And we left Bakersfield, but always repped Cali, you know, and Bakersfield.
So you were like, you actually put Bakersfield on the map before Korn.
I don't know about
right?
before Korn.
I don't know. When was high school?
So Royal Ruckus started in '98. I think Korn was already kind of big.
Okay.
Although coincidentally, at least the lead singer, Jonathan Davis, he went to the same high school we did, just prior to us being there.
Right.
In fact, I think it's kind of funny, a little fun fact. We were the Highland Scotsmen, so I think bagpipes and all that stuff. Yeah. If you've heard any bagpipes on any Korn songs, there's at least one.
Yeah.
He learned to play the bagpipes at our high school.
Okay.
He was on the bagpipe team.
I did not know that. I always thought, you know, I'm going to get bashed probably by all the Korn fans, and so don't hate me because I don't know everything in music, right? I always never looked further into it, but you know, I didn't know that, so that's an interesting tidbit, especially for me being Scottish. That I always thought it was a little gimmicky, but apparently it wasn't. That was his.
Yeah, we actually had bagpipers.
That's got a whole. I got a whole lot of appreciation to that now. So
yeah, so I don't know if they still have a bagpipe team to this day. Right. I know, like when I was in high school, they really struggled to have enough people. But anyway, back to Royal Ruckus. In the years since. You know, we've stayed together. It's just me and Mike Walker, MP Walker. Flatline is his rap name, and we've stayed together as a group. But it's kind of been hit and miss on the music. It's like we'll take a few years off, and then boom, we hit it hard. And in the last few years, we've been putting out a lot of music. I've been the main driving force behind the most recent records. We're kind of doing like a side project that's more or less. That's more or less a Chunjay solo project with a little help from Royal Ruckus. You know? But we've been having fun, and it's been great being back on the road and stuff. It's been a little while since I've been on tour, and then we went back out for a while, and everywhere from, Montana to Pennsylvania and all points in between.
Right.
Obviously not this year.
No, yeah, nobody is. So don't feel bad that if you got shut down on your touring schedule because everyone got shut down on touring.
Yeah.
So do you ever actually, quick segue to that is,
sure.
Do you ever think about trying to get to doing some streaming like everyone else's home, I mean, things like that?
Yeah. So I did do one streaming thing 4 to 6 months ago, something like that. And I was thinking, this is going to become a regular thing. I've had some snafus with the technical side of it. That is not my area of specialty, but I'm just about up and running, so I want to start doing some of those.
So, yeah, I think it's funny because 2020 has really forced everybody to look different, have to really, you talk about really who moved my cheese moment. This is definitely the year because everyone is. I was just recently the other night was on the other podcast I did with Brad Brock, and we were talking about how hard it was back in the spring to find webcams to stream and things. Obviously kids are now at home. You got to find this, you got to do that. Teachers, and then even cooking shows, like high production cooking shows that can't go to the studios. They're doing it at home now, and there's like insane amount of. And then to your point, and I'm still as y'all probably know, and I'm still trying to work on it, and I promise I can try to keep getting better. Is the audio aspect of things, right? Drummers are usually which drum do you want me to hit next, with a sound guy, and that's about it,
Sure.
We don't worry about cables and all those kinds of things and so forth. But yeah, that's definitely a area of we're all struggling. So it's, you're not alone. So we're all doing something new and trying to get out there and do it. So
well, and one of the positive things about it for me has been like, for a long time, I've needed to have a legitimate at-home recording abilities, and I really haven't gotten very far down that path. Actually, I've been recording in professional studios since I was 13. Oh. Now, exclusively, I've also done plenty of garage recording, 4 tracks, garage band, the whole 9. But, I mean, literally, like my 13th birthday present was a 10-hour block of recording studio time.
Wow.
I had to really, really schmooze with my parents to get that. But I mean, it was transformative for me, and it made it very clear to me that like this is something I wanted to do in an ongoing way. And then when you're in a professional recording studio with a legitimate guy moving the soundboard and like doing all the things right, like he even helped me when I was 13. I didn't know what I was doing. I was literally in that 10 hours, I was creating songs from samples and programming beats. Terrible use of time in the studio. But it was my first experience, and he helped me with all of that. And one of the takeaways from that was, well, maybe you don't have to know everything. Focus on the things you need to focus on, lyric writing, music production, that kind of thing. And then partner with the people that actually have the skill set that you need. Right. Of course, there's also value in knowing how to do it yourself.
True. So speaking of, you said you started out with making beats and was a drummer previously to that. And where is, so how did you kind of, let's go back.
You sure?
How did you get, where was the music influences as a kid growing up? Because, rap is, could be considered a little bit newer in a genre or style of music compared to maybe rock and roll. Again, everything's all some, it's like Adam and Eve.
Right.
Music comes from somewhere. It all formed together and then kind of branches here and there.
Yeah.
So whether it was R&B or whether it was soul or the 70s or whatever. So how'd you get into rap? How'd you go from, big influences in the 80s and 90s of, rock and roll, grunge, and all that.
So, well, and I love all of that stuff too. It's just rap was the thing that stole my heart, right? So I think if you really think about it, like I'm part of the first generation to grow up on rap. And, the first big songs were coming out like right around the time I was born. But, I don't think it really caught traction until I was maybe in kindergarten. Now, most kindergartners aren't, well, maybe they are today, but I when I was a kid, we weren't necessarily all listening to the radio. But I was the youngest of 4, the surprise kid. And so there was a significant age difference between me and my siblings. So they were all junior high and high school when I'm in kindergarten.
Okay.
So they're listening to all the cool stuff.
Right.
And I remember at 6 years old being on my brother's Volkswagen Bug, hearing Beastie Boys for the first time when it was brand new. And I just fell in love. I'd never heard anything like it. And it was like something just ignited in me. Now, certainly at 6 years old, I wasn't thinking I was going to become a musician.
Right.
I just liked listening to it. And I mean, I'm not even making this up. You'd see me with like a little play school cassette tape thing walking around playing Brass Monkey. Of course, I have no idea what that means. I think it's a funny song about a monkey, So to me, that was transformative. My mom was pretty early on a little concerned about some of the messaging, as you might imagine. The 80s were much tamer in hip hop than they got later. So my mom became more worried in the 90s. But in the 80s, we discovered there was actually a thing called Christian rap. And so she started taking me to the Bible bookstore to buy that stuff, so I could have positive stuff. But she let me have the other stuff too. And so I grew up on like these two streams and just absolutely loved it. I think in third grade, someone came into our class, the orchestra director, and did like some sort of quiz to find out if we'd be interested in joining the orchestra in fourth grade. I thought the only thing cool in the orchestra, forgive me, anybody who plays the cello or French horn, I thought the only thing cool in the orchestra was the drums. So I did really well on the test, whatever the goofy test was, and I think it was just a trick to recruit people. And I joined the orchestra the next year, and then my mom put me in private lessons. Johnny Snider was my drum teacher for years. He ended up going on to be Eddie Money's drummer.
Okay.
He stopped teaching me when he went on the road with Eddie Money. So I definitely learned from like a really incredible drummer, you know. And then I went to a jazz drummer for a while, and it was under him that I started taking piano lessons. And at that point, I was just absolutely in love with hip hop. I wanted to rap. I wanted to be a DJ. I wanted to make beats. My parents were not big fans of any of that really, but they wanted to be supportive. So our compromise was that I could take piano lessons and they'd buy me a keyboard instead of a drum machine.
Okay.
And so I played drums, I played piano, and I made beats. And then when Royal Ruckus started, well, actually, I should also say one of the cool things that came out of that experience, though, was I knew a lot of musicians from being in the orchestra. Now, I can't tell you how important that was for me. And one of my good friends ended up was a dude that he was in like several punk bands in high school and college. He went on to make some electronic records. And anyway, my first record that I actually like sold to people at age 16 was made in his bedroom and garage with a 4-track. It was just me and a punk rock bassist producing a rap album. It wasn't that great, but like we were doing stuff that was definitely like better than it should have been, honestly. But I think that's because I was learning the art of like collaborating with other artists who brought something to the table. And so what we did together was greater than what we would do alone. Right. And that principle stayed with me all these years too.
That's actually, that would be an interesting, duo as just as huge now as a lot of duo acts have been, pretty recent and prevalent. Again, whether it's the White Stripes or whether it's the Black Keys or whether it's, that'd be kind of an interesting thing, right? I mean, and to your point, right, is right, because the piano is part of the percussion family.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so
absolutely.
A lot of people don't realize that, right?
Right.
Yeah, so it's like, aha, Mom.
Yeah.
You thought you were getting me out of the drums, and you gave me a piano, but I still.
Well, and I think the main thing was, my mom didn't want to spend a bunch of money on turntables and beat makers. She's like, because like,
well, I think you're not learning an instrument.
Exactly. And I can remember. Actually, I remember when I learned that there was such a thing as drum machines. I interrupted my own drum lesson with Johnny Snider. And I said, hey, I was listening to this MC Hammer song the other day. Oh, boy. And I could swear I heard the drummer make a mistake. And he kind of chuckled because, number one, there's no chance that a drummer's going to make a mistake on a major release like
in
that.
a studio. And
they're going to fix that.
Yeah, right.
But number two, it was probably a program beat. And he actually said to me, he was like, well, I hate to break it to you, but a lot of these artists like that, they're not even using real drums anymore. I was horrified. What is this? And then eventually my next drum teacher, he actually had a drum machine in his closet and he let me borrow it. And that drum machine, believe it or not, now that I think about it, I haven't thought about this in years. That drum machine made the very first Royal Ruckus beat on January 21st, 1998. And we celebrate that as our birthday. So
That's damn impressive. That
welcome
you
to
remember.
Behind the Music,
Man, this is
Drums and Rums.
That is a very good memory to remember that specific date.
Well, we were so creative. We actually named the song January 21st. So there's cheat codes there. I can't ever forget it.
Yeah. No, that's really cool because very much a similar, like any teenager growing up, going through things, learning things, so much changing, that very similarly, for me again, maybe grew up and more on the rock and roll side of things, and,
Sure.
and I'm the same thing. It's not that I dislike rap; it's just maybe not the preference, or primary, right?
Right.
Again, a lot of it is beat driven, and a lot of times is a lot of the rap music or pop hip hop music or so forth is what draws me in is obviously the music.
Yeah,
Maybe not the lyrical content, maybe not agree
Right.
with some of it, but it's that the music behind it. It's just a
Yeah.
great driving. So, but growing up, whether it was let me get a guitar, buy a Gibson Epiphone guitar from a friend, and here I'm going to try to do something with it. And again, there was all that, so similar paths, just different styles of music.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? With aspirations of whatever it may be.
Well, I should say too, like, because I don't want to create the impression that like I got rid of the drums and just went to beats, like programmed beats or loops from samples, because that's never really what we did as a group.
Right.
One of the things that I think makes us unique and makes our sound unique, and I think this is where the dividing line is for some people, because there is a distinct Royal Ruckus sound, and some people love it and some people hate it, and I'm comfortable with that. But why is that? Well, part of the reason that is that the guys I started the group with, that's why it was a joke. They weren't rap guys.
Right.
Like Mike was literally like, I think he was a fan of Wu-Tang and Beastie Boys. And you could probably put a period right there as far as his interest in hip hop when we started the group. Now his interest grew. He's very
maturity.
Yeah, absolutely. But those were like the two things, and I remember it was like we had some youth group event at his house or something, his parents' house, and then afterward we were talking. He's playing around his keyboard. He was like freestyle playing a hip hop beat with his fingers, and I was like, I need you in my rap group, my fake rap group. I need you in my fake rap group, But what happened from that is because he was so eclectic in music, and I should also say, I'm jokingly say this, but I kind of despise him because I grew up playing drums, professional lessons week in, week out, and that dude is so talented that 6 months with a set of sticks and a trap set, and he was better than me after years of professional training. So some people really have it.
Some you got to work harder at it than others, and some just got it.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things though is he has always brought this whole bigger world to the musical table, so to speak. So from the very beginning, we've been multi-genre. I mean, our early records have electronic music. They have hip hop, obviously. Some rock and roll. We had a song on our first record. It's terrible, but it was a worthy effort called "Welcome to Skaville," and it was a ska rap song where I rapped the history of ska. So we really thought outside of the box. We brought in bands that no longer exist at this point, but we brought in bands to do studio sessions with us, and we always, would feature the drummer. If we had a drum loop, a lot of times we still would throw in some hand drums or on the chorus, live drums. You got to loop through the verses and then you jump to the chorus and it just explodes.
Right.
So for me, like I'm excited to talk. I almost never talk about specifically drums. So you might have to get me to stop talking about drums on the Drums and Rums podcast. That's all I want to talk about now.
No, yeah, because I think when we first met, I was told you were a drummer and I was involved in a drum thing prior to doing anything musical with you, and it's like okay, and then but again we didn't cross our paths until taking it to there until 2017. March of 2017. I think we had kind of exchanged a few things early in the year just to kind of see where things were at, and then 2017, I think we kind of reached out or however it was, and it was like, hey, come down here. I've got this new release, this new CD, double CD.
The Summer of the Cicadas.
Hey, I'm going down. I'm going over to Wellington. I'm going to go hang out with Biz Markie.
Oh, that's right.
That's right. Yes. So we hung out.
Connected at a Biz Markie DJ show.
So you ain't got what I need, okay? So yes, that was at the Polo Club. I don't remember the name of it, but it's something out there. I think it was end of the season Polo Club Bash, and and that was a pretty interesting night. And I think, of course, it was on always on a Sunday night, school night. So
that was a perfect place, I think, to bring to the table what I wanted to bring to the table, which was, would you drum with me?
Right.
Because I'm wanting to start rapping again, and at this point, Mike is in Texas, I'm in Florida, and I want to go live as Royal Ruckus without the other half of Royal Ruckus. And the idea of you coming on to bring some energy to the show, and not just because sometimes I feel like when it's just me and a microphone, it feels like karaoke night sometimes.
Right.
Now, I think all real MCs understand that. They don't admit that usually, but they understand that, and that's where the real MCs come out. And because you truly can put on a great show, just one guy, a microphone, and some backing tracks.
Right.
But if you can do more, you should do more.
Right.
And
I think you're right. You mentioned it before. Was the looking to do this was it brings so much energy.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And I don't even think it's even maybe it is the sound, but really you can pump a lot of sound through a speaker.
Yeah.
Through the backing track and so forth.
Yeah.
But when there's other people on that stage with you, there is some other thing is feeding off the energy.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
And maybe it is the real closer sound of somebody banging on the drums, or somebody, again, guitars might be a little hard because you got to amplify it. But again, you see, there's a huge connection, right? And that's why it was very interesting, when we talked, was, hey, this is what I'm doing. Are you interested in all that? And it was like, okay, I'm not one to, be such a, turn, be afraid to jump into something else. Because obviously how we met was definitely something that I wouldn't have thought, in the acoustic little project that I was doing at the time when we had met, would have thought I would have done that.
Yeah, but how would you describe the genre of what you guys were doing in that group?
Folky, Americana, acoustical rock. I guess that's kind of a little bit of what it is, and what they've done since. It's awesome, and I think for me, it ran its course just
right. But what I liked, and the reason why I reached out to you, was that I felt like the group was really musically diverse, and that you held your own well as a percussionist within that. I saw you guys play live only a couple of times, but that was enough to see the skill and to see the energy. And also I loved your I think you mentioned on one of your podcasts, you're a gear guy, right? And you had what do you call the drum that you've used?
The Cajon?
The Cajon.
Right,
I've seen you rock a trap set, and I've seen you rock the Cajon, and man, this would be really fun to explore this.
Right. And thus was born the little mini kit that we set up, right? It was, hey, I'm going to, drawing a blank on the festival that you're a part of. Oh my God!
We played here in Boynton.
Yeah.
Oh, the Extreme Tour.
Yes, the Extreme Tour. Yes.
So the Extreme Tour came to Boynton in 2017. I think.
So that was a blast, right? And
Yeah.
I saw it was just actually just popped up on the timeline the other day. Was we were performing there? I think it was September. Was it 2017 maybe? I think maybe it was 2017. And the coolest thing, I think it was the last song when all the kids that came up were all hanging out. We had all sorts of percussion things, and everyone
That was
making
fun. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so I was like, those are some of the things you're like, you know what? Hey, I'm not in front of 50,000 people.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, I'm in a park on a Sunday for a good thing that's going on here.
Yeah.
And we can talk if you want even about the Extreme Tour. Because I think that's kind of some interesting stuff that during that period of couch surfing and kind of really building a lot of friendships and relationships along the way.
Oh, absolutely.
And then and if we were just speaking about being a little talking about envious and so forth, it's like, damn, Jamey's got a job that he can telecommute. And be a rock star, and then go back and do what he needs to do, and have his full-time gig. Damn, I wish I could do that. But
it was nice, and the Extreme Tour was a good opportunity for me to test whether I could do my job and tour at the same time. Because I do work from my laptop, but I'm in sales and marketing and business development, so there are limitations.
Right.
And there was definitely almost an impromptu living room tour I was doing after a hurricane that I ended up cutting short for work purposes. But the other tours I've had besides that one, I've been able to take the job on the road. And like with the Extreme Tour, there was one point where we had like 5 days just in Dallas, just sitting there waiting to go to the next place. And it worked out great because I just pulled out my laptop, cranked out 5 days worth of work.
Right.
And then boom, we were back on the road. I did work on the road. It was phenomenal. And the Extreme Tour is interesting. It's I believe it's the longest running tour currently in America, and I believe they even beat the Vans Warped Tour.
Really?
Or if not, they're pretty close. Now, obviously, the Vans Warped Tour is bigger.
Right? Yeah.
But the Extreme Tour has been an ongoing organization.
Right.
Tons of bands have gone out. Tons of people I know. I actually still, people reach out to me from time to time and ask me about my experience with the Extreme Tour because they've been asked to join or something,
So yeah, so I know we're gonna be all over the place here because again we've got no real actually structure and format. But again, we're gonna talk a lot about, obviously, as Jamey said, drums, beats, percussion things. We'll talk a little bit about the things that are sitting on this table that we're already not talking about.
I've been like constantly sipping, which is dangerous on a live thing because I'm gonna have to go to the bathroom eventually.
One thing, Jamey, I want to make sure whatever you drink tonight, please drive home responsibly. Okay?
No problem.
All
no
right,
problem.
Okay. All right.
This is my library.
Yes.
So
yeah. Well, again, since you just mentioned that, we'll go over. And I guess I know this probably won't carry over in the podcast, but we'll try to describe the best we can as here in the in our little setting here this evening. So,
yes.
so for those of you on the Facebook watching the video here, have you read every book in this room?
Some of them twice.
Oh, damn. So, and it's ironically, I'm sitting there and looking at the bookcase, and you guys can't see. There's actually a book, and the spine of it says Paul, so it's like a
There you
tall.
go. You feel at home.
So do I have to get like a library card from the Ruckus library?
This is one of those libraries that's very stingy with renting out books.
Oh, damn. This is probably worse than Blockbuster, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The late fees are astronomical.
Yeah, let's see where that got Blockbuster, though.
But right, that's true. That's true. But if you don't rewind your book, I won't charge you for that. So
you probably prefer us not to rewind that book.
So dry.
So yeah, you're talking about that first recording studio experience there. I know we're going to jump all over the chronological and musical order here.
Let's do it.
But I think that's kind of it's interesting because I think a lot of folks that may not know that maybe rap hip hop don't realize some of the things that go into it. And I think too, those are fans, and those that don't really like rap and hip hop,
Sure.
or just maybe just, I don't want to say don't, maybe not their cup of tea. Don't realize that there's a heck of a lot of work, time, creativity, things that go into it. It's a creating of something, right?
Yeah.
And that part about the so when you were in the studio at the age of, would you say it was 13, right? And you said you were working with somebody who's helping with the beats and so forth. That wasn't Dr. Dre, was it?
No.
Okay.
No.
He was from California, so I just thought I'd ask, just in case. You never know, right?
But I should say, through that relationship, through that guy, Reggie Langendorfer, Bakersfield Music School and Recording Studio, he is a German guy, and knows his stuff. He had actually had a guy who's now a friend of mine, Sean Brown. Sean Brown was recording with him, and Sean in 1984 or 85 had he was a one-hit wonder, the Rappin' Duke. Da ha da ha da ha 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 ha. It's okay. It's okay. Notorious B.I.G. actually shouts him out in one of his songs. So the line where Notorious shouts him out is probably actually even more famous than his original song. But his song was like this one hit.
But that's been used many times, right?
The da ha da ha.
Or no, maybe
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was like a Rappin' John Wayne thing.
Okay. Yeah.
So he kind of raps in character as John Wayne. It's a parody. It's not a serious rap song, right? I actually have the vinyl record right over here. I'll play it for you later. But so apparently this guy that I had listened to as a child, only the one song, but I loved that song as a kid on my little play school cassette tape player. That guy had moved to Bakersfield, and he was recording at the same studio. So I didn't find this out until I was recording with Royal Ruckus, so I was a little older. But I asked him to give the guy my number and say, hey, you've got an admirer in the hip hop community that would love to chat with you, or fan, or whatever. And so he actually called me, and we ended up doing a few songs together. So he is on our record, Pocket Lint and Spare Change. And I've tried to get him on a couple other things. I've recorded some things for him that never saw the light of day, thankfully. I don't know. Sometimes you record something and then in hindsight you're like, I'm glad that didn't go anywhere.
So the drum machine that you said you got.
Yeah.
Right. So you remember what model, what the deal was?
No, I don't. It was a pretty simple drum machine. I had a real cheap drum machine, almost a toy that I got my parents to buy me, but that didn't make a whole lot of songs. And then I borrowed the one that made a song or two. And then I went out and I bought a groove box. And the groove box was awesome. I don't know if you ever played with one of those, but it was really cool. It probably would have been better. It was not the best purchase for what we were trying to do, but it was in my budget. And I mean, it was still expensive, but it was in my budget at the time. And since we were multi-genre, we're always experimenting with stuff.
Right.
Groove box was phenomenal for like techno, electronic stuff. And I was like, we know how to do samples. And we were doing samples already on computers back then, even though in the early 2000s, it was a different.
Nothing is like it is today.
Right, it's so much easier now. But we were making do with some software that we had, and we were making some pretty fresh beats that way. But I bought this groove box to kind of supplement that, and it really did take it to the next level. I mean, there were a couple electronic songs that we put out from programmed on that groove box, and some hip hop songs that were just phenomenal. Didn't think we could touch that, but the sounds in that groove box were right. The tools and programming were right. I don't know what ever happened to the groove box. I think one of our DJs over the years ended up with it, but I think that's also where my Beastie Boys original first pressing Beastie Boys record went as well.
Oh.
We work with a
get mixed up.
Yeah, usually it's guitar cable, mic cables,
Right.
and things, guitar mic stands and whatever.
Well, sometimes the groove box goes missing.
And I don't know, I think you're a little bit more upset about the Beasties.
I actually probably am.
Yeah.
But I did replace it.
All right.
They remastered it after 25 years or something, or 20 years. So I bought the remastered version.
So yeah, because I think most people, shoot. Well, I mean, now if you look at it yourself today, you know what 20, 25 years, right? About that, right?
Since
This, right? The groove box and the working on the beats.
oh, the groove box would have been probably about 18 to 20 years ago.
Okay, so you look at that now and think of how, like we're saying, 20 years ago, all right, 2000, I guess,
Yeah.
right? late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
And iPods weren't even out yet, computers,
Sure.
and all that stuff. Yeah, Macs were out. Macs
Yeah.
always had been known for better, a little bit better from that aspect of certain things. But shit, look at it now.
Yeah.
I mean, what you can do with that iPhone or that Mac, the GarageBand stuff. I mean, yeah. I mean, like they talk about the Billie Eilish and her brother, right?
Yeah.
They did a whole
Serious.
album, right, from their house and
Yeah.
this, and you know how to use the software, you know how to do these things. You can make amazing stuff. Now,
So-
performing may be a little different, but
let me give you an example. The hot drum machine that I really wanted when I bought that groove box was the MPC, and the MPC was like $2,000 at the time. And I have an MPC app on my iPad now, and it was $5. So that just tells you how much the technology has changed. Now, I don't know if you can do everything on that app that you can do on the MPC. I haven't spent enough time with it to find out. But it's kind of amazing to me that technology has changed so much that that's now the case. And I've even seen that someone has come out with an MPC type of thing. I think it actually is using MPC technology, but it's more or less like the Game Boy of the MPC. It's this little inexpensive, compact device that probably can do everything that $2,000 machine did 20 years ago. So it's amazing to me. Now I know there are still producers that use the old stuff.
right.
I've even heard of producers. I mean, maybe only for like a song or two, but they'll use even like the SP1200, which is an older beat maker and sampler. But here's the thing: like some of the classics, some of the greatest rap songs were made on that stuff. And I'm kind of interested over time, like if there will be a nostalgia that will go back to those things. So, like for example, let me give you kind of an obscure thing, but like one of my favorite bands, they're like an indie band, Tooth and Nail Records put out a lot of their stuff. Starflyer 59. They made a record. I think it was it Leave Here a Stranger? I'm saying the wrong album. I'm picturing the cover. Can't think of the name of the album, but it was loosely inspired by Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. And what they did, because they're incredible artists, and I really admire this, they basically tracked down the same kind of recording equipment that Pet Sounds was recorded on, because they wanted it to sound and feel like that. It doesn't sound like it from a listener's perspective, but from a technical standpoint, it's the same. And I love that idea, and I don't know, I would love to hear a resurgence of MPC-based hip-hop in SP12 stuff. Like, I don't know, that's probably alienating to people who are just fans of the music, but to other artists, I think that might be interesting.
So, there's a few folks listening here, and I know there's a couple of guitarists here that are listening here on the show. I guess would that be very similar for those that you, like I said, are a guitarist, that what we're talking about? Is that what we're talking about very similar to tube amps versus, whatever the other thing? Again, we're not guitar players, so we don't know shit about that. But again, to that point, you're trying to capture that same sound,
Yeah.
Because you always hear about going into the studio and doing this guitar or this amp or this effect or this whatever the case may be.
Right.
You know, I wonder if it's a very similar thing. You know,
Well,
that
sure is.
That is pretty awesome because, well, again, I think there's, well, shoot, you know, records came back, a huge big resurgence. You know, not taking a world over resurgence,
Right.
but still enough that those who remember it and that or want to feel nostalgia and so forth. Remember that some of that sound quality is still better than the digital quality that's now out there. As much as easier it is now to make digital music or recordings or whatever. But that old school analog style is you just can't, you know, something that you just can't beat, right?
The experience is different too. With records, like I still buy vinyl. I don't buy for every record. I mean, I listen to too much.
Right.
Like I would go broke buying all the records that I want to listen to. But I mean, I buy brand new records pretty regularly, and part of the reason is it's a whole experience.
Right.
You've got a physical copy. You're pulling it out. You've got artwork to look at, not just the cover in a thumbnail. Right. I'm sorry, but like for me, I know a lot of artists don't put a lot into their artwork, but like I try to work with talented graphic designers and artists who are actually bringing a little bit of them to the artwork. And I think that's important because I want to create a whole package. And so like for all the records I've put out, I've put out 3 EPs and a double album. And we've had physical copies available of all of those almost for ourselves, like almost to have the whole package. But you know, we do have a core among our following that really loves the whole package, and like we go all out. You open it up, there's stories, there's liner notes. You get that with a record, and you don't get that with streaming.
All right, so I think we're about 8 to 10 years, I think, age difference, right? So I mean,
probably. Yeah.
Okay. So growing up into that point, is it more of a still is I guess the lack of a better way to say it is you just had to be there, right? Because us growing up, there was no other distractions going on. There was no internet. There was no phones. So to being able to sit in your room or somewhere else, maybe more your room, because obviously an album's not as portable. But to your point, there's that whole experience of the album, right? And you're reading it. Okay,
right.
Now you can go online and read about the band, read about the album, watch a video or whatever. Yeah. So I guess but to your point, it's something that again, it just, I'm sure, you know, our parents and before that there was probably many similar ways. But I agree. I'm on board with you too.
Let me throw out there though, I don't think it's limited to nostalgia, because so like I've been out on Record Store Day a couple times. So for those who don't know, like once a year, I think it's in late April or early May, there's a Record Store Day, and all the record stores are coordinated. There's some sort of organization or company that coordinates this, and there's specials and special releases. Like everybody's in on it. Now you have to be kind of part of the subculture to know about it.
Right.
But like I took a road trip with a friend from Florida up to Nashville 5 years ago for Record Store Day. We stood in line like it was Disneyland to get into, I think it was Grimey's in Nashville. We were in a long line to get in. And this wasn't COVID days. So it wasn't like they were limiting us for disease control. They were limiting us because there were so many people that were there to buy records.
Fire code.
Right, exactly, fire code. And they wanted you to keep moving. You know, I mean, you could stay and browse, but you had to keep moving because they wanted to get us all through there. It was a big event. And if you looked around, there were almost no gray hairs there.
Interesting.
Exactly. It's like I think there's a resurgence of vinyl that is actually multi-generational. And I think you're actually more likely to collect vinyl in an ongoing way right now if you're in your 20s or 30s than you are in any other demographic. I could be wrong. It might be 30s, 40s. I don't know. But definitely not people who grew up with vinyl. I mean, I didn't exactly grow up with vinyl. Yeah. We had a record player. Right. It never got used. Right. We did. This is just like a quirk of my house growing up. It was awesome. We had a game room with a pool table. That was great. And we had a jukebox that played 45s, the little records, right? Cool. That was cool. But that was the only vinyl I had in my life, right? Like there was no
not the full, right? And
so for me, it's not so much nostalgia as it is like it's just a great experience,
right? Yeah. And I probably talked about this story before is, and I fall into that as well too. Is born in the mid '70s. Grew up more musically into the music on my own, into the during the 80s, being a product of parents that came over from Scotland back in the 60s or so. Okay. So obviously a lot of Brit invasion stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm sitting, as you know, you're.
I didn't realize your parents were first generation.
I'm a first generation.
You're first generation. That's awesome. I didn't realize that.
And
that totally makes the Highland Scotsman connection even cooler.
Yeah. Which I haven't even had a chance to go back. Or people say, "Have you gone back?" I go, "Well, you have to go first.
You got to go
say
you
can go back." And there's this whole story about I was supposed to go to Scotland when Irma hit. Hurricane back in 2017. For those of you who don't remember that,
I remember that.
And so I still have a little bit of wish it was anyway.
That's right.
But yeah, so growing up, obviously we're again probably have very similar stories. I don't think kids today actually get to experience some of this that the Gen Xers do. Is sitting in the back of the station wagon with no seat belts. So your National Lampoon Vacations movie, you ever watched the original one, right? So going on their way to yes, references, please. If you don't know the reference, please look up what we're holding here. But yes, going to the trip and listening to their music in the car. You had no control over the radio, the music, etc. So obviously, I grew up a lot on that.
Sure.
British invasion, obviously the Beatles. The Stones and a lot of so forth. So a lot of my influences was a lot of that, more in the rock and roll style. And there is a story I'm getting to it. Why I'm telling you all this is, and it just probably wasn't that long ago. Jamey I remember visiting my parents, and we went up there, and my mom. Oh, that's what it was. It's one of those. What do you get your parents for a gift or something? Because
sure.
They're like us now. We're grown-ups. We're like, we can buy our own damn stuff, right? So it's hard to buy stuff for each other.
Right.
So I bought a record player now that they're back out. And USB, and you can do all these fancy stuff. So I finally asked her, said, well, where is it? We set it up. Started listening to records going through that my mom had and all sorts of stuff. And it was actually pretty cool because we're pulling out the albums, looking at this, and listening to music, and
awesome.
Sharing that experience. So I mean, again, there's those little things, but like you said, the albums, right? It's kind of when you're sharing that experience with somebody else, whether you're a teenager, growing up, or something. There's an intimacy, with listening to albums, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's your best friend or by yourself. A lot of times, kids, close themselves in a room, and maybe more kids probably during the 70s or early 80s, putting those big stereophonic headphones on with a cord that's all curly, and just losing himself into the music, and just trying to, because they're somewhere and it's getting them through something. So anyway, so I know we're getting.
But I do think that still goes on though, right? It just goes on in a different way, and I think now it's more playlists and variety, which is a different experience. It's still a legitimate experience of music, but it's a different experience. And as an artist, particularly after having gone through the experience of creating a double album, that's not just, here's the 30 songs that I came up with last week, and I'm going to put them all in one place. No, these were carefully curated, carefully written, carefully sequenced songs to tell a story. I'd never done anything that involved before. And to do that and then get to the end of 30 songs and go, these are meant to be listened to from start to finish like a movie.
Right.
Or at least each batch. 15 songs in one session, 15 songs in another. They can stand alone, but they do. It's like sequel, right?
Right.
After having done that as an artist, I'm totally fine with people putting it on shuffle. I'm totally good with the playlist and stuff. But now when I buy a new record, if I buy a physical record, I make it a point to listen to the entire thing from start to finish. Because if the artist is worth their salt, they've put those songs in a particular order for a reason.
Right. And I guess, especially for those that actually make a concept. Again, it's funny that people still actually call them records.
Yeah.
When they're trying to refer to CD, it's still a record,
Yep.
or not an album, but record.
Record.
And like a Queensryche.
Yeah.
They it's just one example that comes to my mind is the Operation Mindcrime, right? There was a whole story, and there was a whole. You listen to the song, and there was a story being told, right?
Yeah.
So to your point, there's a reason. It's not just so haphazardly just thrown on there. I mean, okay, maybe there is a reason why they call them B-sides,
right? Right, sure,
right? Because
sure.
a lot of people don't, if you don't know what albums are, you don't know what even a B-side is, because there's no such thing as B-sides anymore, right?
Right.
Unless you're talking about albums and maybe cassettes.
Although I will say I do still see it sometimes with singles, which is really where the real B-side is ultimately, right? Sometimes you will see a single dropped that has a second song on there, and that second song is maybe not seen as likely of a radio hit as the first song.
Right.
But the beauty of the B-side was like you had surprise hits. Like if I'm not mistaken, like Run DMC's collaboration with Aerosmith, I believe, even though that was a major thing, that I feel like that maybe that was A-side. I don't know. Here's where I'm going with that, because I don't want to say something that's not true.
Right.
But one of their big hits was the B-side. One of their big hits in the 80s was the B-side. And that's not a terribly uncommon story.
Right.
Because what would happen is they'd send out the vinyl record. You've got the single that they're featuring on one side, but then they throw that other one on the other side, and then the DJ goes to change things up. Because you know what? Let's play this song from Run DMC.
Right.
And then the listeners love it. And it takes off. We live in a different world today, and things are streaming now. And so you have to find other ways. But I'm getting ready to put out some records in the next year. I'm hopefully going to be putting out a full length as well as an EP. I fully intend to do singles, and I probably will put B-sides on a couple of them. What will that mean though in the streaming world? I don't know, but I don't really care, because I have a vision for what I want it to be.
Right.
And I'm just going to work within the system and see what catches traction,
So for somebody who's still putting out a full release of music,
yeah,
that's interesting. Is it a product of is it a product of nostalgia or an old way, or because we now or maybe live more in a short attention span, streaming, hit one song out there and then just be, or again, because a lot of folks now, because of streaming, doesn't have to fulfill a 10 song album, right? Whether unless you're probably signed to a major label, I'm assuming, right. And as a independent, or you can put out on your own, and not have to put everything out there, or put out there whatever you got too, right? You don't have to.
Right.
So, what's your feelings about that aspect of the streaming world now, and trying to get it out there, or even because now there's such a big platform, the internet.
Sure.
You don't have to rely on a big, the internet and digital music has turned the industry totally upside down.
Yeah. So I don't know that I'm necessarily filled with any level of wisdom on this. But from an artist standpoint, I still think there's a lot of value in the full length. I would maybe not do a double album ever again, because that's an easy way to get some real quality music kind of lost in the shuffle. I don't think my double album was lost in the shuffle for the people that bought the physical record. And we had a lot of people support up front. We even had a Kickstarter, you know. So I feel like I heard about songs buried in the middle of the second disc from people as being their favorite. So I feel like, okay, we did it with them.
Right.
But for the streaming, I think it's overwhelming.
Right.
But on the other hand, I don't, you know, there's some new up and coming artists that I've discovered and I really like it. And they just put out single after single after single. And pretty soon you've got 10 singles. I'm like, at what point are you going to just put out a full length? So for me, I don't know. I don't see the value of just a series of singles. And maybe I'm just a dinosaur. But like what I really wanted, like, so if can I mention my new record and
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I'm doing a concept record called Mr. Rogers of the Rap Game, and I'm just about done mapping out the music. Now I want to go to skits, and here's the thing with skits, like I'm not sure I'm going to do them, so maybe I shouldn't have said that. But now I've gone public saying I'm doing skits. But here's the thing, like so Prince Paul, for example, he's one of my favorite hip hop producers. He was one of the masterminds behind De La Soul, and he did their first 3 records with them. He did most of the music for their first 3 records. I think the De La Soul guys did some of the music too. And he's got a podcast series that he did just kind of called What Had Happened Was. What Had Happened Was. And he just tells stories. And in there, he talks about one of the records that he did as a solo artist, as Prince Paul. And he had all these rappers on there playing all these skits. And actually, De La Soul, they invented it. It actually became a hindrance in hip-hop, if you ask me, to the album. Because what happened was De La Soul made all these really fun skits between like every song. And it was an entertaining thing.
To bridge the song to song.
Absolutely. And then once you go digital, though, that's great because you don't always want to listen to the skits, so you just skip past them.
Right.
And that's good. But for the listen of the full effect of the record, you want to hear it with the skits. Well, when Prince Paul did his solo record, the skits became an integral part of the whole package. And he saw it like he was making an audio movie, like almost an audio hip-hop musical. I don't think he would put it that way, but that's what he was doing. And I kind of want to do the same thing with Mr. Rogers of the Rap Game.
Different acts.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So when I want the listener, when they come to this record, to not just hear a bunch of great songs, I want them to go on a journey with me and feel like they got this hip-hop Mr. Rogers experience. You know?
Yeah.
And I think there's value in that. And as an artist, I try to think like, what other forms of art would we accept this kind of shortchanging? Like the painter who is accomplished and does an incredible job and wants to do a series of paintings that are somehow, you know, related, that are part of a broader art project.
Right.
If they turn that into a bunch of thumbnail things and just float them in front of you on an animated GIF and then go away, have you done their art any justice? I don't think you have.
Well, I think to that, right, you know, an album, and even shrunk down to cassette, into the CD, and even the thumbnail on Spotify, iTunes, etc. You're right. It does take away from that showcasing of it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I think it would be a double-edged sword where it's, you want to put something good, but unfortunately, it may never get the right appreciation for art in that sense, because it's reduced to a thumbnail. So that's very interesting. So what's your time? What are you looking at here? You know, to have this out, or your
for the Mr. Rogers record?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would love to have it out. by the end of the year, but I don't think that's going to happen because I need to do it right. And I'm still a little up in the air on a couple of songs on guest features. So we've got to make sure the guest features get locked in and that kind of thing. Also, a little bit of promo. I was going to do a Kickstarter for it. COVID happened. So many people lost their jobs. I didn't feel right asking for money at that time. Right. That said, things are stabilizing for a lot of people. So, I may go ahead and do like a t-shirt sale or something, right? So there will be some things that get plugged in. And then also I've done a ton of music videos for other projects. They're all on our YouTube channel for Royal Ruckus. But I want to maybe get some things lined up for that. Right. I don't want to be in a position where I'm so excited about the music and want to get it out while it's fresh to me and then shortchange the whole experience for the listener.
Right. And actually, in a sense of the double CD that you put out, or album or record, right, is for those that don't know, the name of the double CD is
Summer of the Cicadas.
Right. So, and I think, what was your interesting, story behind the cicada that those that don't know, right, is
sure. Yeah, so the cicada, it's a bug. It's all over the world. If you could, of course, this is ultimately a podcast, so I'm showing off my tattoo to the live stream people, but the people listening on the podcast won't understand that. But so the cicada is an insect, and it's a fascinating insect because it spends most of its life living underground as, basically like a larva, and then it comes up and sprouts wings and flies around, and they make a ton of noise. They make a ruckus, and because there's billions of them at any given time, when they do come out, they make a royal ruckus, quite a loud ruckus. And what happens is they live about 4 to 6 weeks above ground, and then they perish. So the idea is it's a metaphor on a couple of levels, but the long and the short of it is it's a metaphor for life, in that we want to be careful that we are not spending our whole time in life preparing to live. And then when we finally start living, we only do it for a short time. So there's a lesson to learn to not be like the cicada. But then there is a lesson to learn to be like the cicada, that when you do wake up from your long slumber and you realize that it is time to live, you should live fully. Because the 60 days of a cicada's life, you don't want that to be greater than the 60 years of a man's life, as I say elsewhere. But then it's also, on a more surface level, it's also a metaphor for Royal Ruckus, because our intention with the Summer of the Cicadas was for it to be our final record after a long dormancy. So it was like people had heard from us, we made our ruckus, and then we disappeared. And we would have fans pop up from time to time. Where'd you guys ever go? Oh, we're still here. We're just working jobs, Right. And then out of nowhere, we pop out. And then also one of the unique things about cicadas, and then I'll shut up about insects because I'm not a scientist. But one of the things about cicadas is like they're an annual cycle in most of the world. So they're underground for a whole year. Their eggs are laid. They live underground for a year, and then they pop up for their 6 weeks, lay new eggs, and then they die. But in North America, we have these fascinating rebel cicadas. They're called periodical cicadas, and they only emerge every 13 or 17 years. Why 13? Why 17? No man knows, but they do. And they're on different cycles, so every now and then the 13 and 17 coincide.
So it's
and so, like, you might hear them every, 5 years or something, but you're hearing different broods, different families of cicadas on a different cycle. It's just an incredible miracle of nature that I don't know that anybody truly understands.
So do you see there's a lot of the reason why I asked you about it is kind of, as you said, right? You kind of went through a period, you put your double album out, kind of things, life and other things, promoting and other little projects and EPs.
Sure.
But then now you're maybe coming back out to
Sure.
again, right? Yeah, so that's where I was trying.
Yeah.
I was trying to tie it back into.
I see.
So okay.
Well, yeah, and you know, I feel like the Summer of the Cicadas was like that emergence of us, you know, and then we've put out a few EPs since then, and you know, I don't want to be dismissive of those at all,
Right.
because even though they're shorter records, they were records that each kind of held its own and had its own vibe, its own style. I worked with different producers on those, and this one is kind of just a continuation of that same project, but after taking a little break from the road. And honestly, it was too aggressive of a record and album release schedule for me. Just too much.
Right.
So, you know, and I got married this year, like,
Right.
you know, in addition to dealing with the pandemic like everyone else is dealing with. And there were a lot of good reasons to just put some things on hold,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But we will come out and make that cicada ruckus again.
There you go. There you go. You heard it. You heard it here. So no, that's a good point. Jamey is, you're not trying to, again, you're not in a hurry. You're not in a pressure to release. You're not, you know, under deadlines and so forth, but you're on your own terms, your own time frame, you know, to make it what you're most comfortable with.
Yeah.
And your product that you're gonna put out. So
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I got a comment here. I don't know if it's on your thing or just on
I
mine.
think it might be on yours.
It might be worth sharing.
Yeah, sure.
So Kevin Fritz says, "It seems to me that the single every month or so has been discussed as a way of keeping your name in front of listeners, especially in a market where full-length albums are less a thing. Totally get the commitment to the album experience, but a lot of influencers in the music industry are encouraging musicians, especially independent musicians just getting their name out there, to focus on singles as a way to keep yourself out there." And I think he's absolutely right about that.
You gotta get out there and then get your recognition or establishment, and then be able to.
Yeah, and look, I mean, you as an artist, when you are trying to promote your record, the easiest, most natural way to promote your music is to put out more music.
Right.
So if you're gonna put out a full length, you have to find other ways to keep getting out there.
Right.
So that means, you know, podcast guest spots. You know, yeah, putting out singles is an obvious, tried and true way of doing it.
Right.
But I think if you'll find other reasons to have conversations, that can be helpful too.
Yeah. No. Because I think I think it's what this year's one of the many things this year's taught us is, depending on where you had things lined up in 2020 and where you just happened to land, a lot of artists probably got screwed.
Yeah.
And a lot of artists, because of touring, and you know, you saw such a certain, which is very interesting. I don't see it happen as much as it happened, you know, early on back in the spring.
Yeah.
Is a lot of there's I think it's still out there. Maybe it's just because we've kind of moved on to the next thing. Maybe.
Yeah.
Is the live cast, because concerts are done.
Yeah.
Things are starting to locally, smaller venues are starting to open up a little bit more. We do know some of the places that are bars, especially here in Florida, the
Right.
bars were the last ones. So if you're not serving food, you're never going to get in there, and you're never going to see live music. And originally, a lot of those places are probably original music too.
Yeah. Right.
And you know, you're not seeing. I don't know. Maybe the iHeart Music Festival, I think was last week or so. You know, I think a lot of that was all some remote, or even shit. I mean, you know, again, I know who the guy is. Don't really. It's, again, the style of music, but
yeah.
Damn, the Post Malone concert that he did, all the
Sure.
Nirvana stuff. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't.
And I think it
I'm
really,
intrigued though.
it blew people away who
Yeah.
were like, okay, this guy who's a rapper,
Yeah.
who's had and got probably a lot of respect from, you know, non-rap folks is this guy knew his stuff,
Yeah,
knew the the nuances of Nirvana, did a whole set in the house he was at.
Wow.
And with Travis Barker as just one of the people who performed with him on drums. And everybody was socially distanced. You know, they had the bass player was in one room, and of course, multi-cameras were all set up.
Yeah.
But this dude can play guitar, and he was singing. You know, he was the Kurt Cobain. He was wearing the dress and all that.
Wow.
And so it was really interesting. We're like, okay, Post Malone. Of course, most people know that are not rap fans. No, plus the guy who with all the face tattoos in the Doritos commercial now, or the Bud Light commercials now, right? So again,
I didn't know he was in all those commercials.
Oh yeah, so hey, you don't watch much TV then, right?
Yeah.
So,
apparently, I'm out of the loop.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, so to that point, a lot of that was really unfortunate for those that are getting ready to release an album, and got hit with the COVID, and it kind of everyone got distracted.
Yeah,
you can't promote, you can't go tour, you can't do these things, and it sucks because we're like, well, shit. Now what do we? I mean, look how long they keep talking about the Wonder Woman movie. All these movies have been trying to put out.
Yeah.
Top Gun movies. Who the hell knows when that's going to happen because
Right.
all the movie theaters are still not open yet. But I guess depending on what state you're in too. But
they're starting to open in some of the states.
Right.
I know the local one that I used to go to. I haven't been.
Really, here
since
here in Florida.
Yeah, right here in Boynton.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The one that I used to go to probably once or twice a week for a while is open again.
Right. Okay.
I don't know what they're showing, and I feel weird about going in there.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think I think most recently here in Florida, right?
But it's very new. It's very new,
right? Every other and things, and But to that point is where, it's just I think sometimes what you may think is not the right time ends up just being because of other things outside of your control end up setting you up for a better opportunity than you because of a cycle of certain places where you're at. So cool.
Well, and I want to say one more thing about the Mr. Rogers thing. I don't want to keep you all night.
Yeah.
We're
not too bad.
but yeah, so like the Mr. Rogers thing, for example, I've had that idea for a very long time, and I was already working on it, already lining up guest appearances and all that before I even knew there was a Mr. Rogers movie coming out.
Okay.
So when I heard that was coming out and Tom Hanks was going to be in it, I was like, is this a bad thing or a good thing? And ultimately, I think it's actually a good thing because Mr. Rogers is a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so it puts it back on the cultural radar. And then some of the things that happened this year, particularly the civil unrest and things, made me wonder if I had the right timing for this. Perhaps I need to back off of this. Mm-hmm. Maybe this message of kindness and love is not something that people are wanting to hear right now because there's other things that are being discussed. Right. But the longer I've sat in it and the more I've worked on it with other artists, and we did touch on, I'm not going to go into it because that will be for when that single comes out. Oh, yeah. But when some of the racial conversations started, we were working on a song, me and a guest artist working on a song based on the concept of Mr. Rogers inviting Officer Clemens, Francois Clemens, a black actor, to play a black cop in the 60s. And I thought, gosh, how am I going to touch this?
Right.
But the more I started putting my head with other heads, and we started collaborating artistically, the more confident I felt that actually maybe this is the time for Mr. Rogers to speak into the hip hop community or the indie music community.
Right. The movie was, I saw the movie, and again, it's a kid growing up, and in their the 70s and 80s and so forth, know who he was, and some of that messaging, and again, when you're older, you look back and you understand certain things, that you've been learning about, and like, oh, here's why.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it was the movie was a little bit slow.
Sure.
To be honest, we almost turned it off after like maybe 15 minutes.
You stabbed me to the heart.
But I think you saw the movie, right?
I did, but I loved every minute of it.
No, I know, but when that movie,
I cried.
But when that movie started off, It was, tell me, I mean, if maybe I'm way off here, me and my wife watched it. It was okay, where's Mr. Rogers? How, because again, it's very jarring. It starts off, right? It's kind of very, you're not sure. I thought this was a movie about Mr. Rogers, and apparently it was a great way to kind of introduce the story.
Right,
Again,
right.
So if you haven't seen it, stick through it.
Yeah.
It kind of, you got to get through the first, 30 minutes or so,
right.
and then you'll get through that whole story. And then Tom Hanks does an awesome job, right?
Because it's not documentary style, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a movie that's like, it's not a biography of Mr. Rogers.
It's weird.
It's a story that gives you glimpses into him.
Right. Yeah, so and to that point, right, you can go back to a simpler time or so forth, or trying to teach some of those things. And, again, if whether people believe that's who he was, and unfortunately, sometimes people can't believe some things could be, somebody could really be like that.
Yeah. And
to approach it. But then again, once you learn who the guy was and his background and his whole approach and things, you're like, this guy was, he wasn't necessarily a what's the right word, Jamie, is feel well, I guess he probably had some, because he had some religious background, but he wasn't necessarily
he went to he went to seminary.
Okay, right.
And they ordained him, but his mission changed. Like, I think he went to seminary. I think he was actually going to become a minister. Mm-hmm. And then when he realized the power of television,
right,
that changed the angle. And one of the things you got to remember about Mr. Rogers was he wanted to be calm, and like he bucked convention left and right. I mean, one of my favorite clips, and you can find this on YouTube, was his speech at the Emmys. And he goes, think about the people who've loved you into being, and I want you to take 10 seconds to think about these people. And on live television, he looks at his watch and does silence for 10 seconds while they think about the people who loved them into becoming who they are. And these I'm sorry, but there's a stereotype of actors in Hollywood and fakeness. And in that 10 seconds, that little 10 seconds of silence, people started weeping at the Emmys. Like, that's powerful, and it's simple, though. And that was the magic of Mr. Rogers. What it was this simple profundity that, like, impacts people deep down. And like, I think some people sometimes forget how serious his shows were sometimes. Like, he talked about divorce.
Right.
And, like, helping kids figure out how to make sense of their parents divorcing. Who else is talking to 4-year-olds about that stuff on PBS? And like helping people cope with death. Like, he dealt with death when his fish died.
Isn't it
on the show? Like,
isn't there a little bit of hypocrisy or where he's talking about a very sensitive subject? May not be sensitive to adults,
right?
It's sensitive to kids, but then yet somebody who's a little bit out there talking about things that make people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was, it's a totally different. I don't know if we ever could go back to that time, and maybe that's fine. And it was, and there's new things that are out there, and but yeah, there's a lot to that. So you got, who else? You got any good comments there? And
no comments right now. No additional comments. Well, I got a terrible thing though. I really need to go to the bathroom.
Okay, so
what do you do when that happens on the Rum Show?
So you just kind of gonna have to go. Depends on if we have the audio problem, but sounds like so far the audio problem, I didn't have to hit pause on the podcast or the Facebook live session. So while Jamie does that, he's also gonna bring back some fresh ice, because we're gonna bust open some more rum here. So just so real quick, as I go through our podcast session here, I may have to edit this part out. So those that if you know the glass that I'm holding here, it's you all remember the National Lampoon's Vacation back in the 80s there with Chevy Chase, and his trip all the way to. Do we have any takers on this? And again, I can't know. Sorry, folks, that I'm not watching Jamey's watch party there, but y'all know that hopefully you can see that glass that we have. I'm holding there, and it is the from Wally World. So I don't have any prizes to give out. So if you got it right, good for you. But anyway, so we're sitting here sampling some of our rum. That's the glasses that Jamey had preferred for his podcast is to use as a Wally from Wally World. So actually, this is what we're sipping on here is some El Dorado. It's a 12-year aged rum, and it's from Guyana, and it is. They also have a couple different ages as well too. So it's a good sipping rum. I think what seems pretty good is a little bit on ice. So you can pick this up at your ABC Liquors. I think it's probably a larger brand. I know a lot of us here. We got a lot of support. We support a lot of our local craft distilleries here in Florida. As you saw, we've talked with previously Copper Bottom Distillery in Daytona Beach. Also, just recently we had Johnny Ringo from Code Rum on. And again, the other half of the podcast is talking about drums and rums. So we had that. Now that's stuff that I brought along with me. So. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Do you want me to talk about what I brought?
Yeah, we're definitely going to talk about what's. This is a kind of a little bit. This is actually. This might be a good. This might be. We try to become a little bit more into the podcast here, where we have a show and tell segment of.
Ooh.
Because it'd be better that if other people can bring me rum, that's the way to go, right? And as opposed to, because nobody's giving me any free rum yet. So.
Well, tonight is your lucky night.
All right.
So, what I selected. Oh, a little more.
No, yeah, whatever.
So I selected a Rogue Spirit. Rogue is also what we're drinking for beer. We're having a Rogue Dead Guy Ale. Craft brewery out of Oregon, and they were like transformative for me in discovering excellent craft beer. At some point, they started a distillery, and I actually, on a road trip, managed to go to one of their distilleries. I bought some of their, I don't remember what I bought, but probably rum, maybe a whiskey or something, and actually left it with a girl I was interested in at the time. I lost interest, and she lost my rum. So...
It sounds like a great song here.
But I've always thought, gosh, I would really love to get some more Rogue. And tonight, when I was preparing for this, I swung by the liquor store, and I happened to find a hazelnut rum, which sounds like a bad idea to me, but I trust Rogue. So, out of our
cheers,
Wally Moose.
Wow.
Actually, I like that.
Wow. That's got an interesting taste.
Interesting is what you say when you're not sure if you like it.
There's a lot going on here, so.
I feel like this would be amazing with ice cream.
Ooh, do you got any ice cream?
No, unfortunately.
Quick, somebody come to the podcast and bring us ice cream.
Actually, we might have an ice cream bar or two, which is rare for us. Almond, Kind bars. Have you ever had a Kind bar? They're like basically nuts and chocolate.
Oh, like a sports bar or something.
Yeah, they're not super high in protein or anything because a lot of those bars are. But yeah, they're like that. They're like that. It's like a meal bar, and they're so good. And they now have an ice cream, Kind, Kind. It's all real food. It's fantastic.
Not Klondike.
No,
okay.
no,
all right,
no.
To be this right. I do have to say though, you check out the Summer of Cicadas coasters here. So,
Yeah, I've got all kinds of Summer of the Cicadas swag. Here's the thing. Like I said, I use legitimate artists. Like, we work together, and the Summer of the Cicadas artwork was created by my friend Monique Sarkeesian. She's this incredible artist in the Philadelphia area, and I mean, art shows, the whole nine. She just does incredible work, and she offered to paint the things. Like, she did two things, right? So you see the cut. That's the other limitation of streaming. You only get half of the artwork,
right?
Because it's just the cover. So she also did this incredible thing that I've put on a pillow, and this is inside the CD. So I've made all kinds of Summer of the Cicadas swag for the house. I don't know.
Very nice.
And I have the originals hanging in the living room. The original paintings. They're about that big.
So yeah, that's very. Let me see. Hold it up again. Yeah. So
you can hug it if you want.
So,
it's soft.
Yeah, it's very soft there. Very, yeah.
My friend Sean has a pillow of his face, and that gave me the idea that I could put my album artwork on a pillow.
Very good.
It's less weird than my friend's face on a pillow.
It's one of those you definitely stare into and look at different things and hold a pillow probably, or really probably the artwork really.
Right.
In a different kind of, you look at this, and again, this is what Jamey's talking about. Is actually physically holding something and just looking at different things. And again, if your appreciation of the art or the visual, that it kind of, you're wondering what somebody's thinking. Hell, maybe you're looking at something. Well, people look at Van Gogh's, right?
Yeah.
Or Monet's and say, what were they thinking about when they painted this, and why does everybody make such a big deal about it? And again, it's in, what do they say? Beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's cool. It's.
I think it's important. Like one of the like foundational principles just for how I live my life as an artist, and I'm self-consciously a musician. A musician is an artist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I'm self-conscious about that,
Right.
and I think it's important to have original artwork. And I don't just mean paintings. I mean original art in your house can also be musical compositions. But I think it's important to have that kind of stuff.
Right.
Or even prints. I mean, just having artwork, surrounding ourselves with beauty is in and of itself worth doing.
Right.
And I think that can be missed. And I think also in the modern era, sometimes our art, we're so cynical, right? And it's tempting to just deconstruct everything and be like, art to show the absurdity of things. And I don't find that particularly helpful.
So it's interesting because where did I hear this the other day? Oh, listening to Howard Stern the other morning, and I don't remember who he had on, but he was talking about, it was about art, and he took up painting, here later in life, and
Yeah.
just really put himself into it, and he's really, again, probably wasn't where many years when he was younger. And there's a lot of things we all go through. We look back and you're like, had no interest in, and then you get older, you have appreciation for things that you're like, well, damn, I wish I got into it sooner, or I just was never in that place, maturity, mentally, whatever the case may be, to be into something like that. So he was talking about, obviously with a lot of schooling, some of those things are the first things that get cut. Art, and then appreciation of art and art and music, for that matter, right? And to hey, not everybody can be an artist,
right?
That's fine,
right? Absolutely,
but still have appreciation for other people's creations, and maybe some of that doesn't exist anymore. Maybe because we don't have that. Maybe because it's become so simple, to short attention span because of the internet and digital things. But anyway, so
I think there's I mean, I don't want to go too deep, but I mean there is value in contemplation of the beautiful, and I think in our highly like fast paced, lots of content, always consuming.
Right.
We miss some of that.
Immediate gratification.
Right. And our appreciation of artwork can easily be reduced to just simply like branding and logos, and art can actually fade into the background. And I think that actually makes life less enjoyable. We may not notice it, but it's almost like if the color is off on your television, and this still happens even in the HD televisions, like if you've got the setting wrong,
oh yeah,
the picture, it changes your experience.
Yeah.
And when you have it right and you have it beautiful and you actually take the time to appreciate it, like, I think it enhances life.
Well, we live in filters now, right?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Yeah, not everybody, and most that probably are social media game and somewhat of it probably do know more that for us that are, maybe a little bit older than the average. But then again, folks that are a little bit older than us have no idea what those are even, right? So it's again, not bashing on any age generational kind of thing.
It's not about that, right?
Hey, everyone kind of, you live in, and you're tough for your period of time. It's just some of the things that we all experience, and I think it's hopefully the benefit of sharing these things many ways. The irony is, my kids had referred to me as, and used the term on me, was okay boomer, and I said, I'm not a boomer. I'm not. That it's like the grandma and grandpa.
Right.
But some of those things is okay. It's very.
That's pretty great.
Very funny. So yeah. Here's an interesting one. Let's kind of stay on a little bit on this topic here. We talk a little bit about kind of your faith and some of the things that you got going on.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're very involved with the church.
Yeah.
Right. And
for
you're
sure.
doing some Sunday teachings or right.
Yeah, I teach Sunday school for high school students.
Right.
I share that responsibility with several other teachers. Of course, things are really weird right now.
Right.
I'm hoping things will normalize before too long, so we can be back in person.
Right.
But we've done some Zoom stuff, and we're finding ways around that. But yeah, I've been doing that for a few years. I also teach adults. I help our priests. I'm a member of a Greek Orthodox church, and I work with our priests to teach our incoming people exploring the Orthodox faith. Now, they may not be ready to convert. Maybe they're just curious. What's this? Maybe they came to our Greek festival that we have every January, and they see the Opa, and they're having a good time, and then they happen to come in the church, and it's beautiful, and then they're curious. Right. What is this thing about? And it's funny, we get questions from people at the festival where they're like, Orthodox? What does that mean? Are you Catholics? Or someone else might come and go, are you Jews? Like they're not sure what to make of us. Right. And I'm a convert, so I didn't grow up in the Orthodox Church. So for me, I'm always happy to have an opportunity to explain, because there was a time where I was asking that same question. What is this strange thing that has been put in front of me?
But always a Christian.
Yeah, I did grow up in like a non-denominational evangelical Protestant community, and very grateful for that. And it was a wonderful, wonderful thing. But I had questions and wanted to go a little deeper, and a lot of my questions were about church history. Mm-hmm. 2,000 years of church history, and my particular church that I was in growing up, was founded in the 1960s, I think. Right. And there's a notable timeline difference there. And so I had questions about that. Why, what's our connection to the Christians who existed before us? And so just kind of asking those questions eventually led me into the Orthodox Church. Right. And it's been a great blessing. I didn't obviously didn't come on here to preach or anything.
Right, yeah.
But I'm it is an important part of my life.
Right.
It does come out in my music a little bit, but like I'm not making Orthodox rap per se. Right. Now my Unexpected Joy EP is fairly explicitly religious with some Orthodox overtones. but I wouldn't necessarily say that should keep anyone away from it. I think there's a lot there that people can connect with, even if they're not a Christian. But I think any kind of Christian, whether Catholic or evangelical or Orthodox, they may find something there. And then people outside of that, I would hope would still find some value there. There's some philosophical. I don't want to get too deep, but there is some philosophical stuff in there that's real cool too.
Right.
So.
Yeah, because again, I think at I think you have balanced very well your faith, your beliefs, without going too far this way, and to your point, maybe putting off some people,
Right.
into sounding too preachy,
Right.
but at the same time knowing, people will come to it if they're ready, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
they're wanting, and so you said like the festivals, right? Yes. So yeah. So and you're very involved in the Greek festivals, and I know.
It's so much fun.
And I know I'm a terrible friend because I know he invites me every year, and I think no, did I make it one year? I can't remember. No, I think I did. I think I made at least one year.
I feel like you did,
yeah.
but I can't remember for sure. But maybe we took a shot at Uzo and erased some of the data.
That's right. Yeah, that was it. So yeah, no, I think obviously that's a very important part of your life.
Yeah.
Is your faith and so forth. Is that sense, and so yes, you can be a rapper and have church and things in your life, right? Because
Well, it's funny. I actually want to, if you don't mind, I want to point to a prop here. These giant volumes of the works of
front of the rum,
next to the rum, of the works of Jonathan Edwards. When we were recording our demo that got us signed, and it was produced by my friend Pigeon John, I had literally just received those in the mail the day that Pigeon John showed up at my house to work on the record. And we're like walking in, and I'm carrying these two massive books of this guy from the 1700s, who, by the way, has terrible theology. And my apologies to Joseph or anybody else who hopped in here that does like Jonathan Edwards. But I'm not a big fan of his theological and philosophical approach. At the time, I was very curious, though.
Right.
And we were like rapping about, like, we had a song about starting a boy band. We had a song about having pocket lint in our ear. Like, this is what we were rapping about. And then, like, I was reading that, and I remember Pigeon John was just cracking up, like, who are you people? Like, what are these things? But, for me, I don't know. I really like being intellectually stimulated, but I'm not sure, like, rapping about the depths of theology does theology justice, nor do I don't know. I do put a little bit in my raps, but I just feel like you got to think about your audience too. You have to have a common language.
right?
And if all I did was rap theology, my audience would be about 4 people, and we would all have a really great time together. And nobody else would get it. And I would much rather have a bigger conversation with my music,
Right.
honestly. So
Yeah, that's true. I mean, again, you're trying to be very inclusive,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
In that sense, and again, if those that kind of can take something away from it, and not even to the point of somebody coming off or you kind of trying to make somebody feel like you're trying to convert or whatever. Sure. Like, hey, here's some of the things, and I think that's, again, if more people were very open,
yeah,
very wide, eyes wide open on things and life and so forth, and not just be so this and listen. And again, maybe some of the things that are going on this year, because nobody wants to listen,
right?
Or have a civil conversation and be very open to things.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's part of the problem is it's either this or this. And so
let me interject briefly that I think, like, one of the difficulties we had was trying to sort some of this out, because as Christians who were making music, and music that did explicitly mention Christ from time to time,
right.
We were often brought into very specifically Christian venues, and many of them were explicitly for converts, like for preaching. Baxter the Beagle has joined us. But we always had a difficult time like sorting out where we were in that, because sometimes we felt like it was a bait and switch. Like we wouldn't be up front that this was a Christian show, and we would invite everybody, and then they would come, and then they'd get preached at the end. And I know why Christians do this, right? Like Christians believe. I think all religious believers believe that what they have is something that they want to share, and it's made a huge difference to them, and they think it has value for other people. So you want to share that, and music is often a bridge for that sort of thing.
Right.
But I was never comfortable with what I considered a bait and switch. And we got asked to preach a few times, and that was really hard to do, because that really wasn't what we were trying to do with our music. We wanted to be more subtly influential than that. Jesus says to be wise as a serpent, but harmless as a dove, right? So wisdom, but without the sting, and that's kind of what we had wanted to do,
right?
And I don't know. We're also just musicians too.
Yeah.
Like we,
right. Right. Again, to your point, you're trying to have a broad audience or versus again, but there's life going on, and as long as if the message is good and the message is positive,
right,
nobody can fault any of that.
Yeah.
Whatever your religious beliefs are, right? And I think there's a lot of that doesn't exist today. And I'm not saying that it's different music, but again, I think there's a lot of that are living in a very hyper sensitive, active, reactive.
Yeah, reactive is a good
world, at the moment. But
yeah.
So, but yeah, I know. We definitely could get down into the the Matrix, down that rabbit. What a Neo. At the end of the Neo, take the blue pill, the red pill, or follow the rabbit, and all.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah. So, so you've got some new stuff coming out, so it's good. And you said you've got some life things that are going on. You've kind of trying to get some things. You recently you said you just recently got married this year.
Yep.
Kind of taking control of your health and things like that, and so forth. Some new things that are going on. It's
that's been awesome.
Yeah,
that's been awesome.
I'm really happy for you. And
I didn't realize I was going to be famous, but I was working out last week, and they took a picture of me on the rower. I was wearing my Hip Hop Tacos and Life T-shirt, Royal Ruckus, my Adidas sweatpants or whatever, or like workout shorts. So I looked like I was straight up hip hop / CrossFit.
Like, hey man, that's somebody famous. We're not sure, right?
They dropped me right on their Instagram,
man.
Things are gonna start happening to me now.
Did they hashtag you and all that? Did they ask
No.
They didn't ask you who you were? They just like, some dude,
It was just a
his
guy.
ass off.
He's making a terrible face because rowing is hard. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I thought about I was gonna wear my shirt, but I came straight from work, so I was like, well, I don't want to be that guy, wearing his shirt and all that. So,
by the way, I hate that though. I think it's fun
to be that
to
guy?
wear the shirt to the show, to show your support to the band. I don't know. It's like not a cool thing for a lot of people. Like you don't wear the band shirt to that concert.
I think I just did a bait and switch with Jamey. He doesn't realize it. So hold that thought.
Uh-oh. But yeah, I think people should be able to wear the shirt and support the thing.
Well, then here you go, man.
Oh,
look at that.
See, I would have rocked this for the whole episode.
Well, you can still go get more ice and change your shirt. You can do a wardrobe change like a Lady Gaga or Miley Cyrus, right? So,
here, I'll do it like a throw.
There you go. Yeah, I should have gave it to you before we started, but a good set.
Dude, thank you for this shirt.
Yeah,
this is
welcome,
fantastic.
Yes. I've started to, I've made some shirts a while back, and then it was posted out there to try to sell them, and at least make a little money, kind of get the thing out there.
Yeah.
And again, this is still, I'm not making any money off of this, and still kind of a hobby. But hey, if you're interested in, let me get my shameless plugs right now.
Please.
If you're interested in,
That's
advertising or get something to promote or something on the podcast here, that's drums and rums related or music related, totally feel free to hit me up. info@drumsandrums.com or drop us a message there in the live stream or whatever the case may be. Again, so it'd be great to kind of promote some things, or if you also want to get on the podcast as well too. So there's a shameless midstream plug there, but I
want to give a quick shout out to Father Christopher Foley, who is still in the band Luxury. They were a tooth and nail band. They recently had a documentary, I think last year, was in cinemas around the country, and he and a couple other guys in the group ended up becoming Orthodox priests. And fun fact, he may not even know this, but fun fact, early in Royal Ruckus, Mike Flatline used to rock a Luxury shirt all the time. And I didn't even know their music. I just remembered the shirt. It was one of the Tooth and Nail bands, and Mike was a crazy big fan of theirs. And anyway, they did some awesome stuff. Their story is worth looking up and checking out. But he popped in and he said he was enjoying the discussion.
Great.
So
Luxury.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
So you want to Google that and
yes.
Luxury and
if you put Luxury band or Luxury
okay.
rock band, probably I'm sure you'll find it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I'm gonna give it a shot here. I think I'm just gonna let you off easy on try to start off a little something new here, where it's a little rapid. We'll call this one maybe a little bit more rapid. Right. We did the rapid fire, right? A rapid 5, but I think I'm gonna get you a little off the hook here because I know we got a little bit of time. So we're gonna call it the rapid 3 tonight.
Oh,
so.
I thought you said rapping. I was like,
oh
no!
I thought you had to go
is
on
he
mic,
gonna have me doing
mic
some
1, 2, right,
80s freestyle rapping, rippity rapping? I'm rapping Dave,
No, all right. So the idea here is to, again, just you got short, quick
answer.
It's like yes or no or blue or color or whatever, right? So we're gonna go through and then we'll kind of recap it in here
as fast as I can.
Yes. So don't think about it. It's one of those don't think about it. All right. And I think I may know already the answer to this one. All right, ready? Here we go.
Okay.
Beastie Boys or De La Soul?
Oh, ouch, Beastie Boys.
Okay.
That hurt, though. That hurt.
All right.
I cried when I read the Beastie Boys book. I cried. And that's why I have to say Beastie Boys.
Okay.
But go on. I'm not being rapid.
We haven't even talked about the movie yet, the documentary. But maybe
we'll talk about.
We'll come back to maybe. All right. If you had any producer, who would it be?
Prince Paul. So that ties into the first one because he produced De La Soul's first 3 records.
Yep.
But Prince Paul, absolutely.
Okay.
But there's a short list and a long list, and I've thought about it many times. But Prince Paul.
All right. So. Out of all the places that you have lived, where is you feel that you enjoyed the most?
In what sense?
Okay. Well, again, and I know it's
Kona,
probably,
Hawaii. The
okay.
Big Island was. Yeah. I enjoyed that the most.
I know right now in life, you're enjoying where you're at right now.
I'm absolutely loving living in South Florida.
I think if you look back,
my wife is awesome.
Right.
Things are great, but
yeah, right.
But I will also say my experience in Nashville and then specifically Franklin, Tennessee, was very awesome.
Right.
And that's why I actually hesitated on that one, because that was my favorite place to live for the people. Nashville and Franklin, for the people and the music, that was awesome.
Right.
But Hawaii,
oh yeah.
I mean, I lived on an avocado farm. Come on, man. Come on.
Yeah.
I watch the sun go into the ocean every night. Yeah. What's going on?
Well, you can eat guac.
Right.
Boom.
Papayas off the deck.
Before guac was even famous.
Right.
Yeah. Or before the mainland knew about it. Right.
I think everybody knew about it by then.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know. I was never a guac fan until most recently. But yeah. So yeah, that's a tough one there, huh? Yeah. Beasties or De La Soul, huh?
It is. I just think they're just so different, and you know, maybe if you'd put a different group instead of Beasties, De La would have come out on top, right? But Beasties, I not only fell in love with rap music, I fell in love with music.
Right, you said that
through them.
right.
You know, music, like, it changed my life as much as it can change a 6-year-old's life. But like had I not had that experience, I don't know. Like I don't know that I ever would have become a drummer or tried to write raps or any of that stuff.
Yeah, a good buddy of mine, Kirk, you know, who was our first podcast guest. He, you know, very similarly, you know, grew up. He's a little, you know, something like I said between me and Jamey and you and so forth. But he remembers, he said, as distinctly that first tape that came out, the whole, you know, the inliner, the thing, and it was just totally like at that time was like, like, okay, you know, especially, you know, you know, we talk about people inclusion and seeing other people do things that makes them draw them in.
Yeah.
So predominantly rap has not been, you know, a white person's kind of, you know, area, right? You know, so a lot of kids that kind of grew up. I mean, why did you know?
So
not to knock, you know, even like
that's not really...
Eminem, not knock like even Eminem because he can stand on his own. He's got his skills, right? But again, you see somebody who's
sure. So it
and vice versa. I want to make sure I want to distinct that too, right?
But I will say that's one of the interesting things about rap being still seen as like not a white guy's game, right? Like, and I understand because I know where it came from, right? Like, and it came from New York ultimately, and you know, it was music, it was party music from the streets, right? But it went so mainstream that today there is almost no genre that has not been impacted by rap music.
Yeah, right.
Even country music has been impacted by rap music. Yeah. And one of the brilliant things about rap music was it was originally created primarily by people who had no musical training, but inherent musical skill. And I'm just talking about the particular artists, you know, and they didn't have money for an instrument, but they had mom and dad's turntables, and they figured out how to turn it into an instrument and invented a new genre. And because it started with turntables, it was big enough to incorporate all genres of music. Now, the rap today, and this is what makes me sound the oldest, the rap today doesn't remember a time in which other genres informed rap music. And that's not an entirely true statement because there is so much musical, wonderful hip hop, and some of it's mainstream. I mean, Kanye and Jay-Z are still, well, I don't know when the last time Jay-Z put out a record, but current enough. Yeah. But Kanye is still putting out music. Yeah. And it's not like a lot of the stuff that I'm kind of, you know, looking down on a little bit. But like some of hip hop has lost its way. But classical hip hop and even much of the current stuff is not only informed by other genres, it is transforming other genres. Right. And that's huge. And again, we talk about this. Actually, would be a really awesome story to talk about. Jamey is, you know, from a, no, again, not to say it's like a religious-y kind of like, but when I mentioned like music from an Adam and Eve perspective, okay,
right? You know, if we're all from there, right?
Like, right. So like an origins thing, right? An origin story.
Music all was some sort of origin, and you know, again, you say, well, music was from this, and rock and roll was from that, and or so forth,
right?
And then it's like, well, yeah, but then you go further back, say maybe caveman, you know, or whatever.
Sure, right,
right.
Yeah.
So everybody kind of, there's always certain influences, and those are some of the ones, and it's even great that some of the people that are seen or regarded as music royalty or whatever, to be able to bring some of that forward.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot of huge, like that Brit invasion or Brit pop stuff in the 60s. Yeah. They were all influenced by Elvis.
Right. Yeah.
What was Elvis influenced on? this music of pre that, and but yeah, so to the point, I'm not, kind of like I said, not kind of going back, but again, I think there's, and maybe the flip side of it is too. I think is that when everyone has an association to something, we all want to have a tie to it, and whether it's religion, race, or sex, there's always like, oh, hey, that person doing this. But anyway, so yeah, so that, again, I wasn't trying to get too far, but yeah.
But I think you bring up some very good points, and sorry, I thought this was on silent. I guess
playing little Angry Birds, I think.
Yeah, I have an Angry Birds ringtone. I've been exposed. I also have Angry Birds pajamas.
Okay, you didn't have to go that far, but that was all. That's all on you.
It's all for fun, man. I've lost my train of thought now.
Yeah,
oh no, so it's interesting to me that hip hop. Maybe it's just because we're so close to the birth of hip hop that people put that often still to this day in racial terms, because nobody can underestimate the black influence on all popular music beyond hip hop.
Oh yeah.
You wouldn't have rock and roll if it wasn't for black people, black artists. Yeah. Jazz music was the thing that created everything we have now. And of course, qualitatively, everything we have now is less than that great jazz from the past. Right. Like there is no end to the depths and incredible creativity of I sometimes I'll listen to jazz from the freaking 30s. The 30s, almost 100 years ago. And I'm blown away. How have I never heard this before?
The music and
it's incredible.
The recordings may not be what it is today.
Right.
But you know what? You hear that such feeling, such again, the irony is, we talked a little bit about. I went to Nashville back in December.
Yeah.
I did a drum workshop up there. Not a country guy, and or at least I wouldn't say I was a country guy.
Sure.
Right? And while I was there, went to the Country Music Hall of Fame, because I knew I had to do all the sightseeing things. Right? Let's check this out while I'm here. Again, who knows when I'll ever be back. Right? That ain't never going to be the case. But that's the same thing with Maui. I didn't think I'd ever be back to Maui, but I still have.
Yeah.
But anyway, go to the Country Music Hall of Fame. The irony is, I would have, if I ever told myself 10 years prior that I would be at the Country Music Hall of Fame before being at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Sure.
Fucking crazy.
Right.
Right. But yeah, but just, and again, sometimes maybe I'm a closet, history kind of like love to hear some of this. How did country music start? How did this start? And again, some people that are country, musicians and fans and so forth, like Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash, was married to June Carter. June Carter's family was kind of considered country royalty because they started very early on. Mm-hmm. And how did that music start off? You talk about people, and then you talk about again, we'll go back to way back to very difficult time to talk about it is during the slave period, and the music and this and the kind of evolution of things, right? So anyway, so back to the Adam and Eve of. I just do that. I think it'd be kind of a great kind of concept to talk about some of that or something. And I'm sure there's something there we can maybe talk about offline.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you're a producer. So, and again, it goes back to, again, I think you already kind of explained it, right? And I think you already talked about it earlier about your go-to producer, right? So if you had your choice.
Prince Paul definitely, and I highly recommend his podcast for those who are into hip hop type stuff. But other people that have made the list is like, for sure DJ Muggs, which is he did a lot of the Cypress Hill songs, right? Like, I think he even did Jump Around. I'm pretty sure DJ Muggs did that for House of Pain, the Jump Around song, which we covered on our album Royalty Check. Muggs is like a little different though, because he has a very distinct, or at least had a very distinct sound. I'm not sure how it's evolved over the years, but there's just a lot of hip hop producers that kind of just they leave a thumbprint on everything they do, and it's just all that's good. So there's definitely a lot of people, but I mean, my gosh. Like if we were just like, I don't know, I didn't think about expanding it because I answered so quickly. Like Rick Rubin would be incredible to work with, and I think he produced Johnny Cash. Right. He produced the Beastie Boys. He's produced everybody.
Right. He's not genre bound, but to transition to that again, I wouldn't say like some of the music, not entirely all the catalog of Beasties again, maybe some fickle about certain things that kind of catchy, right? But watch the Beasties, documentary that they had on Apple TV or whatever it was. I signed up for the period just to watch that.
Sounds like I need to watch this.
Oh, so you haven't seen the Beastie Boys documentary? But you know about it, right?
Yeah,
but you've probably read it, right? So
I read the book.
I call you out, but yeah.
So the book is, by the way, the book I highly recommend, and it's in audio and visual, and they're both phenomenal. The audio is a creation of its own. I mean, the Beasties read it, but they also bring in actors like I think like Seth Rogen reads a section of it. Like I don't know, like there's some interesting people on there. And they make apologies in there for things that they did in their career. Like it's a beautiful thing. And to hear it in their own words on the audiobook is fantastic. But the book itself is a visual treat. So yeah.
No, I think if you haven't seen it, it was definitely again not somebody who knew who they were, knew most of the things, grew up watching him from the 80s through the 90s, a lot of very groundbreaking things, groundbreaking videos with Spike Jones, and the two of them just kind of on stage telling the story.
Yeah,
and it was in front of an audience there. I can't remember where the theater they were at, but going through the whole story, talking about their career, talking about the loss, and talking about. But back to the Rick Rubin, where I was going with it, was. And again, maybe I misunderstood it, but it seemed like man, they seemed like they got really screwed over on some things on their deal with.
Probably.
But then again, too, with some of those, they went into it with it came off like they got kind of screwed because they didn't understand. And again, it was one of those, that first whole album that they went on tour and then they came home to. That they did a lot of Rick Rubin and Russell Simmons did a lot of the musical magic to produce the products, right? So to the point, it's like, hey, you guys aren't just on your own making music. There's a lot of other artistry going on that a lot of people know about.
And I think when it comes to like the music business end of things, every successful artist has a getting screwed story for the most part. And every unsuccessful artist also has a getting screwed story. In our case, we didn't really get screwed. We had really great people working with us. Now, there were some difficulties. There were some, we had some broken relationships actually through it for a while. I don't know of any that still exist. We've patched everything up. But, like, it can get messy when you mix artistry and business.
Yep.
That just comes with the territory. But I will say, like, we had great things happen. Like, something that occurred to me that I don't know that I've ever said on a podcast or an interview is like, our album was mixed by Alan Shacklock. Alan Shacklock, if I'm not mistaken, produced or mixed, not sure which, I guess you can look it on Wikipedia, Bat Out of Hell by Meatloaf. I don't know, maybe he has Grammys, I don't know. Great dude. We met him briefly. He did incredible work. Like, how would we have ever gotten that opportunity if we hadn't inked a deal with the Nashville-based label? Like, I did this weird kids project that was like Blue's Clues style. It never saw the light of day, although if you're savvy enough, the video is on YouTube. I recorded some of the audio for that in Alan Shacklock's like basement studio. Like, what an incredible experience, you know? And like, how would I ever get to work with anybody who literally has like the gold or platinum plaque of Meatloaf's record? Like, I'm just a dude from Bakersfield, you know, who wears jorts.
There's.
I should have worn jorts tonight.
I would have gone with it.
It's very, very plain though.
No, I think, Jamey, there's a whole. Actually, by the way, your nephew, Brady.
Oh, that's my sister.
Or sister, okay. Hey, uncle. Sorry.
Oh, maybe it's her children posting on her account or something.
So apologies. But yeah, no, I think there's so much. There's a whole lot more stories I know Jamey's got, because even the whole, as you talked about, high school to the through the years of the Royal Ruckus being signed and touring as in that late teens, early 20s or so, traveling around. I think there's a whole kind of conversation there, which would be kind of great. So. Again,
well, we can always do this again.
Oh, no. So, sure, no, we definitely got to come back. And I said, every guest has got an open invitation to come back again. When you're ready to come, want to get back on, promote. Our guest from episode 2, Loch Ness Monster, they're a local South Florida band here. They've got some things. They got irons in the fire. And I said, well, whatever you're ready to do, come back on. We'll announce and promote and talk about it again. Drink some rum.
I heard half of that episode. It was great.
Thank you.
Didn't hear the whole thing.
There was
That's not because of the episode.
Thank you. There was a whole lot of editing on that one. Again,
okay.
That was episode 2 when I was still trying to figure things out and thought we were going to be somewhat of a let's talk about music and drums and be connoisseurs and then talk about the rum also. Well, the whole bottle got drank. And there's a whole lot of things. There's a whole lot of editing that happened and we cut things out. So. I can relate. Well, I appreciate. So, all right, why? Is that just an obvious?
Oh man, it was just an incredible experience. You actually mentioned my sister and my nieces. They still live on the Big Island. It was actually her suggestion that I move there. I lived there for 2 years. It was phenomenal.
So that was not related to the Royal Ruckus and the
nope.
It was just like, hey, come on out here.
Yeah. Well, in fact, the only thing that Royal Ruckus really ties into there is we had just officially been released from our record deal, and I think like Mike was getting married and like had another job, and like we were just kind of in a different space. Yeah, we didn't we weren't done with the group, but we weren't active, and I had an opportunity to work for the company I work for now, work from my laptop, and realized that meant I could live anywhere. My sister was like, why don't you move to Hawaii? Oh, cool. Sure. And it was awesome. And it was just a great experience. I definitely had to work and live a normal life there, but that's also where I converted to Orthodoxy. I made a lot of good friends there. I did play a Royal Ruckus show, only one, but I did play a show there for a bunch of hippies at a community center in Pahoa, Hawaii. It was pretty awesome.
It's
and I've rapped with an acoustic band too. So I did a guest spot. So it wasn't like I did nothing when I was out there, but it was just a little pulled back.
So we actually didn't talk a whole lot other than the extreme tour that we did here.
Yeah.
Right. We've only actually performed twice? No, three
times.
Three times. That's right, yeah.
Three?
That's right.
Is that all? Are you sure?
I think it's only 3.
I feel it's been like 4 or 5 times.
I don't know. We've got to find out.
We'll have to review the Instagram evidence.
Video, yeah.
Because if you ever performed with me, I guarantee you I posted something about it on Instagram.
Oh, no, I know. Well, I remember there was, obviously at the park here in Boynton.
Yeah.
Right.
There was one closer to you.
There was one
with the guy with the crazy, scary mask.
That's right, Wolf guy. I don't know.
That was a great show.
Yes, Chris Springer is watching, or it may still be, but yeah, it was a part of your tour that somebody had booked you on. It was like in a strip mall, bare concrete place. And this is where, you know,
But it was cool. They had 2 stages. They had a bar. We were drinking PBRs or something, some other thing all night.
And it was right there. And I think we ended up telling them we needed to move off the stage because we couldn't hear the speakers, right?
Yeah, that was wild.
And it was like one of those. Everyone was kind of right around us, right? Kind of real close and intimate. And that was just right at the base of the Roosevelt Bridge there in Stewart, the bridge that kind of had some issues.
Yeah.
And no, I remember that. Yep, and that was. I think after that we were trying to Uber to try to get something to eat. And then we ended up catching the same Uber. And then we got here, we went there,
and everything was closed.
Yes,
it was
like,
terrible.
We just want some food, and
it was all about that rock star life.
That's right. Yes, and so we went back. Yeah, so that was a fun night. And then I think, at least to my knowledge, lastly was at the.
We played the show on Christian television, man.
Yes.
Like a local.
Easter was the day before Easter? Not the show.
Man, it was 420. It was 420. 2019.
I don't know what that means, but so I don't know why you're saying that. So,
it's just a date that just sticks in my head.
It's April 20th.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, for
what
sure.
What came of that?
It aired. I think. And yeah, I'm pretty sure it aired. I got the video footage.
Okay.
I think there's a YouTube video of you and me doing one of the songs.
All right.
I think Back in Effect got put up.
Okay. And there were some other great musicians that night. There was a band that I think was before us.
Yeah.
Or, anyway,
it was a full evening.
Oh, it was
But it was a really cool thing. I mean, they were. I don't know if they're still doing it, but it was kind of like a monthly cafe style showcase that actually was on television here in South Florida through some Christian network, right? So I don't know what that means, but I do know that we had a great time. The people who put it on were super great people, and it was a cool experience. But one of the fun things about that is my Unexpected Joy EP came out as a result of that show. Because I took an old song, He Spread His Arms, our most explicitly Christian song ever. We had it remixed by my friend DJ Sean P. And the remix was just so good. We were only going to do the remix for that show. So they'd have something very Christian for their audience. And it was just so fun to revisit that song, and so powerful and unexpected, dare I say, that we ended up creating an entire EP around the one song. So, and that was our Unexpected Joy. Oh, it worked out great.
Yes, I think our green room was amongst the church, children's toy room or whatever it was. So. No, I had a great time.
We could do a whole episode on green rooms, I'm sure.
Oh,
so
that actually would be a great one to talk about. Anyone who's done any type of for sure.
That would be one if we ever did a